You have the record, Chairwoman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have Amendment 228 and Amendment 229. Let me start first with 228. This is an encryption funding amendment. It is sponsored by myself, Congressman Rush Holt, and my colleague on the Judiciary Committee, Representative Doug Collins of Georgia. The amendment would prevent funding of any intelligence elements, program, or related activity that mandates or requests that a device manufacturer, software developer, or standards organization build in a backdoor to circumvent the encryption or privacy protections of its products, unless there is statutory authority to make such a mandate or request. Now, we've seen in the newspaper that the NSA paid the RSA $10 million to set as the default a deliberately flawed encryption method, which gave backdoor access to any message encrypted with the RSA program. In March, we saw another report that another flawed encryption tool was given to RSA by the NSA to increase the speed at which to access messages encrypted with the flawed standard. The recent Heartbleed SSL bug shows that even when backdoors are created unintentionally, the cost to business to repair them are tremendous. And I think the important thing to remember is that if there is a flaw in encryption, eventually somebody finds that flaw and they exploit them. Now, intentionally adding a backdoor to security or privacy systems or standards not only makes us all more unsafe, it comes with huge economic costs. These costs are more than what we lose to bad actors exploiting the backdoors. It also costs tech companies the goodwill and trust that they build up over the years with foreign consumers. It just doesn't make sense to spend money on a program that results in greater harm and costs than would exist without the program. Now, since the NDAA's purpose is to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2015 for military activities of DOD, and since the NSA is within this department, we have been advised that this amendment is germane. I think it's important that we give an opportunity to the members of the House to speak out on this item. It is a matter of tremendous concern among Americans in both parties, and there is support for reform among members of the House from both parties. And I think it's important that the House have an opportunity to express its will. The second amendment has to do with 702 of the USA Patriot Act. The amendment would prohibit the use of funds for searching for the communications of Americans that is collected under Section 702 of FISA in a manner that's inconsistent with either the probable cause requirements of the rest of Title VII regarding U.S. persons or the Fourth Amendment. This amendment is offered by myself, Congressman Massie, Congressman Amash, and Congressman Polis. Again, this is a bipartisan amendment, and I think it's important that the members of the House of Representatives have an opportunity to stand up and take a stand on this issue. This amendment comports with the structure of Title VII, which requires probable cause and all of its authorities that directly deals with the communications of U.S. persons. Now, how does this actually work? 702 of the Act provides that you can collect information in bulk about people outside the United States and also communications between people in the United States outside. As a practical matter, what that means is not just phone calls from me to my great-aunt Tilly in Sweden, but also because phone calls as well as emails and other Internet communications are routed along the Internet backbone, that information flows in a way that is just easiest to flow. Further, we have servers that have the information of U.S. persons that may be located outside of the United States, even though they have the information of U.S. persons. For example, some companies have servers in Iceland because of their geothermal energy and because it's not that hot in Iceland, which is an issue for server farms. they might have all of your information, Mr. Chairman, if you have a Gmail or a Yahoo or MSN account, but because it's located outside the United States, all of that could be obtained. The point of this amendment is that if you're going to query that database that has been lawfully collected for information about Americans, you should get a warrant to do that. You should have probable cause. And probable cause is the standard in the Fourth Amendment, and it's the standard throughout the rest of the bill. Now, this is germane because the NDAA's purpose is to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2015 for military activities of the Department of Defense. NSA is an agency under DOD, and we believe that although there are efforts underway between the Judiciary and the Intelligence Committee to come up with a compromise bill relative to the USA Freedom Act, this is not addressed by that compromise, and it needs to be addressed by the House of Representatives.
Ms. Lofgren, your insight into the specificity of the cyber world is interesting, and I will tell you that I'm intrigued by your testimony. I am probably, as every single member of this body, concerned about the laws of this country to protect individual civil liberties, but also to make sure that we have an opportunity to protect this country. But the application through the back door by an organization, any organization that would allow information to be gamed, what I would call gamed without proper notice, is serious. I don't consider it a breach. I consider it an application. And I need to go look at this a little bit more, and I will tell you, you being here is very important, and I appreciate this.
Well, I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and as I say, this does have bipartisan support. I would note that I was aware that a version of the USA Freedom Act will be coming before us, and it is a compromise. I did vote for it in the Judiciary Committee, but the 702 backdoor problem, which was addressed by Mr. Sensenbrenner in his original bill, is not included, and it should be. It doesn't mean that you couldn't get information, but it is, if you have a warrant, you can query it. And here's my fear, that if we don't address this issue, we're going to be back here in a couple years having seen the same kind of, violations of the Constitution that are going to lead our constituents across the country to be outraged, and we have an opportunity to address it now. I understand and support the need for compromise between the two committees, but allowing the House to work its will, if a majority of the House feels that the Fourth Amendment ought to be honored in this way, is not inconsistent with the agreement reached between the two committees. And I thank the gentleman for his kind words.
Well, I remember